Assalamu alaikum, San Francisco. I'm from Brooklyn. You guys got to do better than that. Assalamu alaikum, San Francisco. I know it's the Bay Area, and you guys are from Santa Clara and Santa Ana and all these other places, but I think it's cooler to say San Francisco. That's just my opinion. So I am so deeply honored and humbled and grateful to be here today, and especially this CAIR chapter means a whole lot to me because it's actually led by someone who actually is one of my best friends, and I am so proud to call Zahra not only a colleague in this work for civil liberties for our community, but a sister. So I hope that you all continue to support her leadership because we in the Muslim community need Zahra now more than ever. I want to also thank my Empower Change family who's here. So when I'm running around the country making good trouble, they're holding down the fort. So much love to my brother Dustin, Mark, Muhammad, Ishraq, and Kifah who are here today. Thank you, Ilhan, for being such an inspiration for women, not only across this country, but across the world. Thank you for your courage and your fearlessness and your boldness. I want to thank and congratulate all the honorees tonight. You are what makes America great. You are our hope for the Muslim American community. My friends and family at Jewish Voice for Peace, you've been there way before anybody was there for us. Our friends at Asian American Law Caucus, I love you. RT, you are a great leader. We need you now more than ever. One Justice, thank you for your boldness and your solidarity and embodying allyship. And I'm always so deeply honored and humbled and grateful to be sitting amongst a living legend in our community, our beloved Imam Siraj Wahaj. I don't let anybody tell me, define for me who my heroes are. You are a true hero of our community. May Allah give you a long life and keep you around for a really long time. Thank you to all the staff at CAIR, San Francisco Bay Area. There would be no CAIR San Francisco Bay Area chapter without you. And I want to say thank you to all the volunteers who are here today. We underestimate the power of what it means to give back, so give a huge shout out to all the volunteers who are here today. And let's not forget our fabulous, tallest activist in the American Muslim community, our dear brother from the CAIR Sacramento chapter. I am so proud of him as a fellow Palestinian American, as a dad, as somebody who's like been pushing that you got a lot more hope in the Democratic Party than I do, so I give you props for your patience there. But let's give it up to our brother Bassem Al-Qarra. So I'll start with the positive, and then I'll take us down, because I don't know, everybody else was really inspirational and thoughtful today, but I'm not really feeling that inspirational and thoughtful. But what I will say is that I had a remarkable year this year, and I say praise due to Allah for all the blessings that I've received this year. You know, I am so proud to be a daughter of your community and to have organized the largest single-day protest in US history. I am grateful for the opportunities to grace the cover of magazines, to have profiles, to be able to share my story in living rooms across America. I am grateful for the platforms that I received that I know, my dear sisters and brothers, comes with great responsibility. But I am happy to be able to represent our principles, our values, and our beautiful religion that it is rooted in social justice, and I am grateful to be a voice for that. So yes, it's been a wonderful year, and I know a lot of times in the Muslim community and even outside the Muslim community, people see a lot of the glam. But what I will also say is while it was the most remarkable year I've had in my activism career, it has also been the worst year of my life. This has been a year of constant defamation of my character, slander, constant attacks, threats to my life registered with law enforcement, threats to my family. And you might ask yourself, but why? Why you? And I think what it is that there are people who live in this country that couldn't fathom a strong and bold and unapologetically Palestinian Muslim American woman in a hijab speaking truth without worrying about the consequences. Seeing an unapologetic Palestinian Muslim American woman at the front lines leading the resistance against fascism in America. The opposition thinks, how dare I be so unapologetic and shatter every piece of propaganda that these folks have been propagating against Muslims and Islam. And my message is to them that you will come to terms with me. You will come to terms with this Palestinian Muslim American woman, because when you come to terms with me, you are going to come to terms with the beloved communities that I come from. So I'm here, and Imam Siraj says this, and I don't know if people totally understand what we mean when we say this. We're from Brooklyn. And when you're from Brooklyn, maybe it's something in the water, but there's something missing. We don't have filters. We don't know how to reframe and frame and find different words to explain things. We say what we feel, and we say it like it is. And I'm here to say to you, and I know Islam is patience and compassion and all this other good stuff that you all talk about. Me personally, I'm outraged. Outraged every single day. When I wake up in the morning, I'm outraged. And how am I fueled? What keeps me going? Zahra told you what keeps her going. Perpetual outrage. That's what wakes me up in the morning. And I'll say this to all of you. And I know a lot of you woke up on November 9th and you were all devastated and in despair, and you were wondering, how did our country get to the point where people betrayed us and voted in a xenophobic, Islamophobic, racist, misogynistic, sexist bigot? I wasn't actually, believe it or not, I was outraged too, but I was outraged for different reasons. I was outraged at the outrage. I was like, where were you? Because Donald Trump didn't introduce xenophobia to me, or racism to me, or sexism to me, or homophobia to me. He didn't introduce any of that to me. I was outraged by this new sense of awakening to the ills and the poisons that have been in this country since the days of its founding. So I was like, welcome to the club. Welcome to the Black People Club. Welcome to the Indigenous People Club. Welcome to the Undocumented People's Club. Welcome to the most marginalized communities club, who have been experienced levels of despair and outrage, some for centuries and decades before we ever saw a Donald Trump. So, just in case it's not clear to folks, it's bad out here. I know some of us live in bubbles, we got good jobs, we drive nice cars, and maybe racism and Islamophobia hasn't hit your doorstep. But it'll come. I hope that you are ready now to fight back before it comes to your doorstep. So let me tell you and remind you how bad it is actually out there. It's only been 11 months. It's not a long time. For me personally, it feels like 20 years. In the past 11 months, we have rescinded DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. We have put 800,000 young people in our country at the fear and risk of deportation. And by extension, 12 million people who are their families. Now, mind you, these young people were actually safer when they were undocumented, because now the US government has an entire database of their names, addresses, where they lived, where they worked, and of course, by extension, have put their families at risk. We have a mass deportation program, which, by the way, we had when we had President Obama. So let me be real clear here to you. Do I wish I had President Obama right now? Probably. I'll take him back. But I won't forget that President Obama was the deporter-in-chief. He deported about 1,000 people every single day. So let's keep that clear. But we also have a new president who's strolling up to hospitals, detaining young little 10-year-old girls like Rosa with cerebral palsy after she just had a surgery, strolling up to courts where people are showing up for court dates and arresting them there. So the mass deportation forces are out. The continued attempts at stripping us of our health care. I will tell you this past Tuesday, just a few days ago, I went to Washington, D.C. to protest against the GOP tax scam. It's not a tax bill, it's a scam. They're scamming all of us. They're playing us all for fools. Not me. My mama didn't raise no fool. So I went to Washington, D.C. to protest against this bill. I'm a privileged person. Alhamdulillah, God has gifted and blessed me with good health. But I don't need to be unhealthy or sick or have a terminally ill disease for me to show up in Washington, D.C. to fight against this other attempt at stripping us of our health care. So when I got to Washington, D.C., they were doing it Occupy style. So everyone was like, mic check, mic check. And a woman stood up. She was bald, maybe in her 40s. And she said, I am here. People said, I am here. She said, I am here because I want to live. And in that moment, my dear sisters and brothers, as I watched them arrest this 40-year-old woman with cancer, who is now receiving cancer treatment under the Affordable Care Act, as I watched people and as I personally got arrested next to people in wheelchairs, people with cerebral palsy, people who suffer from ALS, people like senior citizens who were in their 80s who said that their medication cost about $15,000 a month, and if their Medicare Part D supplements would be taken from them, they would have to choose which medications to take. And at that moment, my dear sisters and brothers, I was ashamed to be an American, that in the land of abundance, that there are people who are literally fighting to live in these United States of America. Constant attacks on women and our reproductive rights. I don't care what you think. Nobody, and especially no man, gets to legislate what I choose to do with my body. Muslim ban 1, Muslim ban 2, Muslim ban 3, and now you're at a full-fledged Muslim ban. They took it back to Muslim ban 1. Rise in hate crimes against our community members and those who people think are us and are not us. Arsons of mosques across the country. I don't know, sisters and brothers, I don't know how many mosques have to get burnt down for all of us to rise up and say enough is enough. In the last 11 months, I don't like to use the word mother and bombs in the same sentence, but that's what they call it. We dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. We killed 200 civilians in the deadliest airstrike on Iraq since the beginning of the war in Iraq in 2003. And if all those things were not already outrageous, our president thought it was a good idea to stand up this week and say and declare that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel. And since he thinks it's as easy as making a declaration, I'm going to make another declaration. Jerusalem is not the capital of Israel. Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine. Sisters and brothers, my blood is boiling. Like, I can't explain to you how outraged I am to live in a country where the majority of Americans are still silent. And people say there's momentum. We watched elections on a couple of Tuesdays ago, and people were like, we got this, Linda. We got Jersey and we got Virginia. Did you watch the statistics? 52% of white women still voted Republican in New Jersey. 51% of white women still voted Republican in Virginia. What does that tell me? That tells me that the power lies in the hands of people of color. We are the hope of these United States of America. Now, I know why they don't like me. It's okay. Because in this country, they don't like people that speak truth to power. They don't like people who make them feel uncomfortable. Listen here. For me, when I say something or when I'm feeling uncomfortable, it ain't about who's speaking. Gotta ask yourself, what is it about what I'm saying that makes you feel uncomfortable? Truth is often uncomfortable. In this country, they call people like me, they say, you know, you are un-American. You don't love your country. If you don't like it here, go back to where you came from. Newsflash, I'm from Brooklyn, but all right. Sisters and brothers, and I'm talking to the Muslims for a second. In this country, the United States of America, a lot of our parents and great-grandparents and grandparents came here because this was supposed to be the land of freedom and democracy. And I believe that dissent is the highest form of patriotism in a country like the United States of America. If you sit back in the face of injustice and racism and xenophobia and watch people suffer around you, that don't make you a patriot. That makes you a coward and someone who continues to uphold the white supremacist system that this nation was founded on. They also don't like people who want to ground us in the reality of the country that we live in. I don't take for granted that my Palestinian immigrant parents came here to the United States so that I could have a better life, so that their children could be born in a place where they can have better opportunities. I don't take that for granted. And I know there's a lot of refugees and immigrants who have better opportunities, and many of you here have received the education and opportunities that you otherwise would not have been able to receive in your home countries. But that doesn't mean just because our parents or our great-grandparents got some opportunities that we forget the history of these United States of America. They don't like that we are rooted in a reality that this land was founded on the extermination of indigenous people. That's not my opinion. That's facts. This country was built on the enslavement of African people. And guess what? 25 to 30% of those enslaved Africans were Muslims. Those were our people. We also, in this land, segregated people by race. And I would argue with you that we still segregate people by race. Come to Brooklyn, let's go to Hartford, Connecticut, or to Detroit, or even parts of the Bay Area. Actually, not only do we sometimes segregate people by race, we also sometimes do it by class and by socioeconomic status. When they said Muslim ban during the elections, everybody was like, don't worry, Linda, they don't do that. You can't do that. You can't just ban a whole group of people. It's not how this works. They must have been absent on the day that they taught us about the Chinese Exclusion Act. We passed a piece of legislation that banned a whole group of people from a country from immigrating to the United States of America. We also live in a country that decided one day to intern Japanese Americans. And Zahra said this earlier. People say we ended slavery. I would argue that we still have slavery, modern-day slavery. We walk around wearing nice clothes. Did you ever ask yourself who might have made that shirt that you're wearing? Mass incarceration is modern-day slavery. When you are the land of the free and the brave, and you hold 25% of the world's prison population, when you are not by far the largest country in the world, that's a problem. And that holding the world, 25% of the world's population tells me somebody's making money off of that. So, of all the things that I mention here, there's one of those things that really stands out to me as a Muslim American. Japanese internment just overwhelms me when I think about it. Japanese internment was 75 years ago. Sisters and brothers, there are still people amongst us today who are still around 75 years ago. And I want to take you back a little bit, because people don't always learn history in a holistic way. We hear bits and pieces. Japanese internment wasn't like some guy woke up one morning and was like, I got a great idea. Why don't we just go around and round up all the Japanese? And then another guy was like, what a great idea, let's do it. That's just not how it happened. It was years of propaganda against Japanese Americans. What did they say about the Japanese Americans? They said the Japanese were not to be trusted. The Japanese could not be loyal to these United States of America. That we had to protect ourselves from the Japanese. That they were, in fact, the enemies within. So let's fast forward now to 2017. Who are they saying that about now? You would think they picked up the same playbook, literally, word for word. The Muslims are not to be trusted. The Muslims have a secret agenda to take over America. Islam and the Constitution are incompatible. Muslims do not have the capability of being loyal to these United States of America. So I want to ask you, my Muslim sisters and brothers, seriously, I want you to reflect with me for a second. What makes you think that you're more honorable than a Japanese American? Why? Do you think that you love your children more than Japanese Americans love theirs? Do you think you have a more honorable job than Japanese Americans have? Are your religious institutions more sacred than the religious institutions that belong to Japanese Americans? What makes you think as a Muslim American that you could be immune to a potential atrocity in this country when you know that you live in a country that has and is capable of doing really horrible things to people? I ask you that, my Muslim sisters and brothers. And I say to all of you that you have a responsibility. And a responsibility to be unapologetically Muslim. Yesterday, I had the privilege and honor of going to Friday prayers at the Lighthouse Mosque. And I had the privilege of listening to Imam Amir Sundiata, and he challenged us. He said, will you as immigrant Muslims, as children of immigrant Muslims, are you ready to own the legacy of an enslaved people in this country? A history of resilience in this country. And I say to all of you, my dear sisters and brothers, when they tell us to go back to our country, I say to people, we've been here before you ever got here. That we as Muslims have been on the shores of these United States of America before it was called the United States of America. It was galley slaves, Turks and Moors, who built the first English colony, Roanoke Colony, on the coast of North Carolina. It was enslaved Africans who came and built these United States of America. And I always think to myself, when all the Muslims are saying, oh, is Sister Linda Islamophobia, and our children this, and I don't know how we feel, and we feel despair. And I want you to stop and reflect on this for a second. I want to know, how is it that enslaved people, enslaved African Muslims, figured out how to be Muslim under the watches of slave masters? How did enslaved Muslims still believe that there was a God after all that they endured? After losing their children, after people trying to strip them of their language, of their culture, after seeing torture and experiencing torture, after seeing women and their families raped by white slave masters. How did they still believe there was a God? Sisters and brothers, you have no choice but to be unapologetically Muslim in this moment. I take my responsibility very seriously. And I'm going to share a little story about an experience that I had in the Muslim community. A couple of months ago, I went to ISNA. I went to a luncheon as a keynote speaker. And I stood up. I said things that I always say, nothing profound, nothing different. I was being Facebook Lived. I knew it was all being recorded. And I shared a story. I shared a story about a man who asked our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, what is the best form of jihad or struggle? And I said that our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, said that the best form of jihad or struggle is a word of truth in front of a tyrannical ruler. That's what I said. That's it. Everybody clapped. It was great. Said assalamu alaikum. Everything was fine. The next day, I find out I'm trending on Twitter. I'm like the picture on the top for like 25 hours. Everybody in the country was up in arms. People were calling for me to be arrested for treason. I was calling for this and all this outrageousness. And then there were some leaders in the Muslim community that called me. Some didn't call me, the cowardly ones didn't call me, and they started criticizing me publicly online. And they said, Sister Linda, you gotta be more careful. You gotta be more cautious with the words that you use. And I sat and I thought about it for a second. I said, are these people out of their damn minds? Are they crazy? So what I did was, in contrast to what other Muslims choose to do, what I chose to do, I chose to double down. I chose to stand up for my right as a Muslim to preach my religion in the way that I want to preach my religion, to define my religion the way I want to define my religion. And for me to say proudly and unapologetically, preach the words of my beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings upon him, without anybody telling me that I can't use the words of a beautiful and perfect man. So I called up the Washington Post and I said, you gotta let me speak for myself. I got some things to say. And what happened was remarkable, sisters and brothers. All of a sudden, Muslim leaders and young people got the courage to start putting forth and sharing narrative about what the word jihad means to us. Why would we as Muslims allow for xenophobes and Islamophobes and anti-Muslim haters to tell us and limit us and the way that we want to worship in these United States of America? What kind of message do we send to our young people when we start telling them to be careful about what kind of Muslims they are in these United States of America? What kind of community are we? Are we not worthy? Do we not deserve to practice our religion freely like everybody else in this country gets to practice their religion freely? We as Muslims don't tell Jews how to practice their religion. We don't tell Christians how to practice their religion, or Hindus or Sikhs. We live in the land of religious freedom, and that religious freedom better apply to us, which is why we have groups like CAIR to defend our rights in these United States of America. Now, I didn't just double down because I want to be unapologetically Muslim, and I'm hoping that there are generations to come that are unapologetically Muslim. It's more than that. I know and you know that one day you are all going to meet your Lord, and I'm going to be right there. And God is going to ask you some questions. He's going to say, what did you do to defend your religion? What did you do to defend our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him? What did you do to defend our houses of God? Did you cower? Were you too afraid and ashamed to be a Muslim that you shied away from practicing your religion freely? I don't know about you, sisters and brothers, but I'm going to have some really good answers. And I hope that you join me. And I'm going to share this nightmare that I have with all of you, because it really keeps me up at night. Like, I barely sleep. I always think about 100 years from now. And I will say this to all of you, none of you are going to be here 100 years from now, and I sure am not going to be here 100 years from now. And I always imagine a Muslim family sitting somewhere quietly in a basement somewhere, and they're whispering to one another. And they're saying, why are we so afraid to be Muslim? Why don't our women wear hijab? Why are these beautiful multi-million-dollar masajid empty? Why are the Muslim schools closed? Why are our children ashamed to tell people that they are Muslim? And then they start questioning. They say, what were those people doing in 2017 and 2000? What were the Muslims doing? Why didn't they stand up for us? Why were those Muslims cowards? Sisters and brothers, I don't want Muslims 100 years from now having that conversation about us. 100 years from now, I want Muslims to be more unapologetically Muslim than we are today. I want them to say, MashaAllah, those Muslims that lived 100 years ago, they defended our rights. They donated to organizations like CAIR. It is because of groups like CAIR who had the resources to defend our rights to be Muslim that we get to be unapologetically Muslim 100 years from now. That is your responsibility to create that story and to ensure that the story is one of power and courageousness and resilience. That story is up to you to create. And I want to remind you that you live in a country where freedom is not free. Freedom doesn't just fall in somebody's lap. You got to fight for your freedom in this country. You got to pay for your freedom. And somebody before you paid for you to be in this room today. The question is, what are you willing to pay for future generations to be in a space like this? That is on you. That is your responsibility. And I will say this last thing, maybe two more things, because I'm on a roll today, because I'm fired up. 2018 is going to be an important year for us. And a lot of people in here will be really self-righteous, because we got a lot of self-righteous Muslims, and I don't like it. A lot of self-righteous Muslims, a lot of self-righteous Arabs, a lot of self-righteous Palestinians. I don't like self-righteous people. I don't like people who do things based on how they feel as a person or about your individual feeling, because that's not what it means for us to be Muslims. The Muslims, we are a collective, and our responsibility is to protect the most marginalized and the least amongst us. I want the Muslims to stop complaining. Stop complaining about everything. If you're not going to do something about it, I don't want to hear what your complaints are. If you're not ready to stand up and do something, if you're not ready to donate to an organization that's doing something or support an organizer, if you're not ready to take yourself to the polls and vote against hate and xenophobia and racism, I don't want to hear you. You have been an obstacle to us as a Muslim community. For the Muslims who say, Sister Linda, I'm just not political. I don't do politics. I hear that a lot in our masajid. Let me make something very clear here. If you woke up this morning and you're Muslim and you're breathing, you are political. You got no choice but to be political. You have been politicized. Your community has been politicized. Our religion has been politicized. So you have no choice but to be political, be engaged, and be part of the resistance to defend our rights to be Muslim in these United States of America. And you can start by supporting the work of those that work at CAIR. Now, the other thing that we have a problem with is we got Muslims who care about what everybody else thinks. I don't care about what anybody thinks of what I do. I'm not looking for approval. And the Muslims should not be looking for approval to fight for your God-given rights in these United States of America. So let me tell you this. Sister Linda, when you say white supremacy, that sounds really radical. I don't know, that might alienate white people. Sister Linda, your approach is a little, I don't know, aggressive. Like, we got to be, we're Muslims. We got to be, no, this is not how it works in this country. Sisters and brothers, we worry about what people think of us. But let me tell you how history works in this country. Anybody in this country, historically, that has stood bold, has been unapologetic, and has put their life on the line to defend the rights of their communities has been demonized and vilified. So let me use a very universal figure as an example. Everybody loves it when January comes around and everyone's like, Dr. Martin Luther King, and let me put up a quote of Dr. Martin Luther King. And there's a problem when the opposition does it. Like when the Republicans start putting up quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King, there's a problem. There's a misunderstanding here. So let's make sure we don't have a misunderstanding. I want to take you back 50 years. And by the way, 2018 is the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King, the guy who they told you was a peaceful man, he was a man that united people and brought people together, the white people and the black people together. That's what they told you. But that's actually not who Dr. Martin Luther King was. Dr. Martin Luther King was a black radical revolutionary. He was a man who put everything on the line to defend the rights and fight for the rights for black people so they could be treated as whole human beings. He was also a victim of police brutality. He wrote you letters from the Birmingham jail. At the time, the FBI director, J. Edgar Hoover, called Dr. Martin Luther King one of the most dangerous men in America. The organizations he organized with were blacklisted by the US government. So if that's who one of your heroes are, just know that he wasn't who he told you was. And that the way that history works in this country is that they may not like Linda now, they may not like Colin Kaepernick now, but 40 years from now, you will be walking down Colin Kaepernick Boulevard. Because that's just how it works in this country. 50 years from now, people are going to look back and say, CAIR was a fierce and bold organization. That CAIR was the leaders during this 21st century civil rights movement. And that it is because of CAIR and their bold stance for justice for all people. Let's get another thing clear, sisters and brothers. In Islam, justice is not just us. That's never been the concept in Islam. Justice is not just us. And when CAIR fights for the rights of Muslims, they fight for the rights of all people. And I guarantee you 40 years from now, if not before then, you will find the names of the CAIR leaders of Zahra Billu etched in the history books of these United States of America. So, it might be just better for you to say, 40 years from now, I want you to look back and be like, I wasn't a coward. I was unapologetic. I didn't care what they said about CAIR. I stood by CAIR. I helped CAIR make history. I helped CAIR defend our rights as Muslims in these United States of America. So I'll end by saying to you, my dear sisters and brothers, I'm not afraid. Fear is a choice, and it is not on my list. And if you're ever looking for me, I'm on the front lines. Because I believe in you. I believe in me. I believe in our right to be Muslims and whole Muslims in these United States of America. And I will never walk back and walk into my house and look at my children and let them feel any type of fear. I stand boldly in front of my children and let them know every single day that you are worthy, that you deserve to be treated with dignity and respect and nothing less. May Allah bless all of you in this room. May Allah bless the leaders of CAIR. May Allah protect them and protect their families. May Allah make them successful. May Allah give Imam Siraj a long, long, long life, because we want you around for a long time. May Allah protect me and my family. And may Allah make us victorious for generations of Muslims to come after us in these United States of America. Thank you, everyone. May Allah keep us and keep our hearts close together. Assalamu alaikum.